All right. Thanks everybody for attending the Sage Intacct webinar we are doing today. This is the start of a webinar series that we're going to be running over the next few months, covering various topics inside of the Sage Intacct product. Today's topic is going to be dimensions, dashboards, and reporting. So real quick agenda about today. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the PowerPoint here because I really want to kind of get into the software and really start showing you guys, what things look like in Intacct and what these dimensions and dashboards are used for. But we're going to do a quick introduction of Martin and Associates. We're going to do an introduction of Sage Intacct, and then we'll have a couple slides to go over some things on dimensions and dashboards, and then we're going to jump right into the product and actually start looking at what all this means. So quick background on Martin & Associates. So Martin & Associates was founded in 1988. We have 26 employees in our Cincinnati, Ohio office, which is where we're based out of, plus some remote staff as well across the country and various other states. The 26 staff are, kind of have different, backgrounds and experiences. So we have people with a CPA/accountant's background. We have business process analysts, technical people, programmers. We have people that concentrate on the what we call OS&H, or hardware and server side of the business. We specialize in ERP/accounting systems, CRM systems, and then all the supplementary products that go with those systems. So, the ERP systems we deal with are Sage Intacct, Sage 100, Acumatica are the main ones that we deal with. We also deal with Sage 500. And then we deal with all the Microsoft products, and then Creatio CRM. And a key thing for Martin & Associates, as you're working with us, like through a sales process or whatever, if you're a new client overall and you're just getting introduced to Martin & Associates, and you're working with, say, myself or Brett, who's on the call here, I'll introduce in a minute later. If we're working with you on the sales process, we're also going to be involved in the implementation, in the training, in the support going forward. We'll bring other people in to assist as well, but we like to keep a continuity between from the beginning to the end with you, so you have a familiar face or a familiar name at Martin & Associates that you're used to. So quick introductions here. My name is Joe Gupser. I am the partner of Sage Software for Martin & Associates. Also on the call here is Brett Penzinger. He is the director of Sage Software here at Martin & Associates. So between Brett and I, we have a combined 50 plus years of experience in the Sage software marketplace, dealing with Sage 100 and then Sage 500 and then now Sage Intacct as well. So, we've talked to a lot of the people on the call over the years, I know. So let's talk about Sage Intacct briefly. So Sage Intacct is a born-in-the-cloud solution. It was founded in 1999, and it is a native cloud product from day one, from the very first line of code that was written. So basically what that means is you don't have a server locally sitting in your office anymore that you have your ERP system installed on, or you don't have to basically pay for hosting to host your ERP system out somewhere. It is a SaaS-based product. It's all hosted online. It's part of your subscription automatically. It's a very reliable product. They have a 99.8% uptime commitment. There are automatic backups that happen nightly and are stored off-site. You access the Sage Intacct product you're going to see here in a little bit through a web browser. So whether that's Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or whatever web browser you use, that's how you access Sage Intacct. So as a result, it's got a more fresh, modern interface because it's more of online type stuff that you're used to in today's day and age. And since it's accessed through a web browser, you can access Sage Intacct from anywhere, anytime, as long as you have an internet connection and you have a web browser. There is dimensional accounting built right into it, and there's dashboards built right into it. That's two of the things that we're going to concentrate on this webinar today, are dimensions and on dashboards. It's also multi-built right into it, so multi-entity available right out of the box, multi-bin right out of the box. Multi-currency right out of the box. If you add that module on, that's an add-on module, but it's a core module to the product that can be added on, not a third-party product like some other products are. There are approval processes available throughout the system. And we're going to get in more details on that in one of the upcoming webinars, where we have a webinar specifically going over the approval processes inside of Intacct. They're built right in. They're available to be used or not used, depending on your company's needs. Automatic upgrades. So Sage Intacct releases 4 new releases each year, and they happen automatically. You will get an email letting you know that an upgrade's coming up. Everybody gets upgraded all at the same time across all the different servers that Sage Intacct has all the things hosted on. But you'll know when it's happening. It'll happen overnight. You'll work one day on the version you're on. You'll come in the next day and you'll be on the next version. As an end user, you won't know the difference. The interface and stuff's going to look the same. There's just going to be some new features or whatever available in that new release. So that's a little different than people who are on a Sage 100 or a Sage 500 or a GP product or something along those lines, because we had to schedule your upgrades and actually go through the time and doing all that. So there'd be time and material costs and everything for that to work. That all kind of goes away with Sage Intacct. It is a best of breed product, which means easy integration to other solutions. It was designed for CFOs, professional finance teams, accounting teams that are looking for a powerful solution. And this last bullet for the CPAs out there, it's chosen as the first and only preferred financial management software by the AICPA. So they were the first one chosen that they picked as a preferred product, and they're still the only one as well. So this little graph up here just kind of gives you a little summary of some of the stuff we talked about and the modules that can be added on and what's core and things of that nature. There are industry-specific solutions that can be picked as well. Moving on, just a couple more quick things about Sage Intacct. So as I mentioned earlier, it was founded in 1999, okay? And, it kind of just kept growing through the years. 2009, it received the AICPA endorsement I was talking about, recognized as a top place to work. 2011. 2017 is when Sage actually purchased the product. So it used to just be called Intacct. Sage purchased it 7 years ago and it rebranded it Sage Intacct. And from that time forward, the product has grown exponentially. Sage has put a lot of research and development into the product in the last 7 years, really fleshed out and filled out a lot of the things in Sage Intacct and made it a really strong, viable product out in the marketplace out there. So that's just a quick little timeline about that. It always ranks really high in customer satisfaction surveys each year. Does really well in those. See some examples right here. So let's talk about dimensions. So dimensions help you simplify your chart of accounts. So if you think about a traditional legacy type of a chart of accounts that you're used to right now, you have a main account at the front, and then you have a series of sub accounts in segments 2, 3, 4, depending on how many that you have. What that requires you to do is that requires you to create individual accounts for all the possible combinations of those sub accounts and main accounts that you want to use. That's different with dimensions. Dimensions, you have a series of predefined dimensions and user-defined dimensions that are available. So you can add dimensions as your business changes if need be. And what you do is you simply tag transactions inside of Sage Intacct across all your modules. And this will all kind of start tying together, making sense as we keep moving on here. So it helps you streamline your reporting. There are drop-down lists to filter on and group on these dimensions. They can be customized around activities and key metrics that you want to capture. There are 10 predefined dimensions that come out of the box, from the who's, the where, and the what's, between customers, vendors, employees, locations, departments, classes, and items. Depending on if you add on the inventory module or the project costing and billing module or the contracts module, these will come along with those individual modules if you have those modules, so they will be available. And if there are other needs you have of what you want to track and report off on your data, you can add predefined dimensions as well in different packs to add additional functionality out in the system. So let's talk about the legacy account that I was mentioning earlier. So here's an example. We have an account 1500 for equipment. Our account structure is 4 for the main account, -3 location, -3 department, -3 project. And you see the locations, departments, and projects we have there. If we were going to make this equipment account be available for all the different combinations of locations, departments, and projects that we see here, that one main account would create 75 different combinations of accounts out in your chart of accounts. So you see how your chart of accounts can grow exponentially pretty quickly. So that one account, 75 accounts based on these segments. With a more modern chart of accounts like Sage Intacct, all you define is you define your main accounts. So you define your balance sheet accounts, your P&L accounts. You have statistical accounts available as well if you want to track non-financial things out in the system, like head count, things of that nature that you want to report off of or do reporting off, analysis of reporting based on, per head count or per whatever. Those are things that can be turned on as well. But you have your main accounts, you have these dimensions available, and you just tag your transactions to those dimensions. So you have a more streamlined chart of accounts that you're kind of looking at when you're going to post things. Here's an example of dimensions in action. This is a screenshot of what we're going to kind of dive into more here in a little bit. But this is a journal entry. And you'll see you pick your account right here. And notice it's only the main account. And then you have your departments, your locations, and your other dimensions all available here. And you just simply click on the drop down for each of those, and you have the values available for each of those dimensions / segments / reporting criteria that you want available that you just start tagging your transactions to. And then once you post them on your reports, you'll start seeing those dimensions showing up on your reports, and you can now start reporting and selecting based on these reports. Also, dashboards are available. And on the dashboards up here in the top right, you're going to see in a little bit, you can start filtering these dashboards by your dimensions as well. Okay, so that's the quick little PowerPoint that we kind of have provided or put together. Let's jump right into the product. So this is an example of what Intacct will look like when you first come into it. There's a lot of more detailed things we can get into, but we're going to kind of jump right in and talk about dimensions here a little bit. So dimensions, out of the box, we talked about there are certain dimensions that come with it: location, department, class, things of that nature. Let's say that you didn't call them locations, departments, classes. You called it something else in your company. That's totally fine. Intacct has the flexibility to let you come into terminology here. And for any of the fields inside of Intacct, and you want to call them something else. So instead of calling your customers, maybe you call them clients. You can change the terminology here to make this be called clients. So here's an example. The default dimension called class, you can see has been modified for this company because there's a restored default over here on the right. So if I click on edit here, it is for English language, we call it channel instead of class, and we call it channels instead of classes. And just by changing it here and saving it, it automatically changes your interface everywhere where that word is to show you it'll be called channel and channels now. They had another one out here for, there's also, if you added the project accounting module, this projects becomes available. And this company, instead of calling it project and projects, they call it job and jobs. Okay, so this is an example of how you can kind of tailor the system to be more like what you want it to look like and what you're used to in your company for the wording across not just dimensions, as you saw, but across other fields out there as well. So let's talk about how you set dimensions up. So the first thing I'm going to go into reports here. Here's dimensions, and here's all the dimensions available for this particular company. And I'm going to pick departments right here. Okay, so this is one of what you maybe call a segment in your existing chart of accounts called a department. You give it a department ID here, and then you give it a department name. I'm going to go ahead and edit one of these. So you give it an ID, you give it a name. You can pick we'll talk about part or parent here in a minute. You can pick a manager of who's responsible for that particular department. These are just employees that you set up in the system. They're not required. You can pick it or not pick it. And then you have a status if it's active or not, or inactive, or non-posting. Again, we'll talk about the non-posting one here in a minute when we talk about the parent. And then you have this kind of reporting title for the department title here. And this gets into when you run your general ledger reports and you group it by entities, locations, departments, or whatever. There's going to be a report header above each of those columns. What it'll do is it will take, you can put up to 50 characters and up to 5 lines of additional information right here. And it will take a combination of the text above and this text here. So it'll take the name and stuff here, plus this, and in your standard reports if you choose to put something in the department title. It's not required, but it's there. You also have restrictions down here at the bottom. Now, out of the box, this information does not exist down here at bottom. That's a good thing about Intacct as well, is you can create your own rules and create your own functionality, how you want dimensions to work. There's some things built in out there that you can turn on or off and tell it how you want it to work or not work or whatnot. So on the departments right here, there is a list. You can pick what GL accounts this dimension can be used on. Okay, so what this is, so if it's on the list here, it makes it be available. So think about this. You have certain GL accounts that you only want certain dimensions to be used on. You have other ones you don't want to make available on certain GL accounts. Then on those dimensions, you remove those accounts, and it controls the filtering of what can be seen and not seen for each dimension when you pick a certain GL account on a transaction. Okay, so you'll see we have a big list here on Department 100. We have a whole list of accounts here where Department 100 is available. Okay, let's go out here and look at Department 550, Research and Development. This is a more restrictive one. So top part's all the same, but notice we only made this account, or this the 550 departments only available for these handful of GL accounts. Okay, so if we go to pick any other account in the system, 550 won't be available for a department to be posted to. You can add to this by clicking on the magnifying glass here. Okay, when you're inside of here, you can sort ascending or descending order by your account number to look for your accounts. Okay, I can also come out here and create a filter and say I want account number starts with, let's say I want to look at my expense account. So I'm going to say starts with 6. And I'm going to refresh my view, and that's going to filter down my view now just to the accounts that start with 6. And I'm going to pick the 6020 telecommunication expense here. All right, it's not let me pick that right now. All right, I'm not sure why that's not adding that. We will come back to that. So that, oh, it did. Sorry. Okay, sorry. My bad. I forgot. It does it for you automatically. So by clicking on it, I automatically put it out here. My fault. I was thinking I had to click on OK there for a minute. So you notice it put those out here for me, 6220 and 6320. It added those two GL accounts as accounts that are now available for having the Department 550 posted on it. Okay. And you'll notice they're bold right now because they were just now added. That's why they're bold. As soon as I save this and come back into it, it'll go back to just regular text like it is on these. If I picked an account that I did not want, I can simply click on this red little minus sign right here, and that will remove an account from the list as well. So let me go ahead and save that. Sorry about that little hiccup there. Now, if you turn on, again, like I said, this bottom part down here isn't turned on by default. These are things that you have to turn on in the system to make them be available, because by default, this will always be blank down here. But if I turn on to be able to do filtering by GL account by department, then what I will also see is out in my general ledger accounts, I'm going to pick an account here. So I can do filtering up here at top and just say, give me only thing that's, starts with 6, and it starts filtering for me. If I know I'm looking for my rent account, I could type in rent here and it'll find anything that starts with rent. If I am looking for something where the receivable is in there, if I type this in like this and hit enter, it's looking for anything that starts with receivable, but you can search inside the name by putting the % sign before it and clicking on the pound or clicking on enter, and notice how anywhere where it finds receivable in it, it shows it. But I'm just going to go to rent, and I'm going to pick rent here, and I'm going to edit this. And because I turned on GL filtering by department, notice down here at bottom, I see the same thing where on the department side, I picked what accounts were available for that department. They'll show up here, but on here, I can also pick what departments are available for this account as well. So they're updating the same thing, but you can get to it from 2 different places. It's just are you looking at it from the account view or the individual department view? Okay. Now, on individual accounts as well, you can require certain dimensions to have to be filled in if you pick this particular GL account. So you'll notice for rent, it will require the department dimension, the location dimension. It will have to have something in those 2 dimensions before you can post it. Otherwise, when you go to post it, you'll get an error saying, hey, you have a blank location or a blank department. So I can make channel be available as well by clicking on that and then saying save. So that's how you can require, because that's a common question we'll get is, well, if it's not part of the GL account, how do we know people are going to pick and fill in the dimensions out there? That's how you make it be, have to have something in it by making it be required. Okay. Yeah. So as I said, it can be dimensions are a replacement for your segments, but it can also be other things you want to report off of. So if you're a nonprofit, you might have funds. A fund might be a dimension out there for you where you want to be able to tag things to certain funds. It's not something you would necessarily have in your general ledger and your regular chart of accounts, but you want to be able to run reports based on funds. You can make that be a dimension and have it available out there. And maybe it's not something you require to be posted on every transaction because you're not referencing a fund on every one, but it's still available for reporting. Okay, moving on here. So parent-child relationship. So if I go back into dimensions, and I'm going to go into my channel dimension, you'll notice I have a series of dimensions out here, just like we saw on departments, but there's channels for residential, commercial, retail. And notice how 400 is on the same level as these, but 405, 10, and 15 are indented. That's because we have display hierarchy turned on here. And if I edit 400 dimension, you'll see it's a active non-posting dimension, which means you cannot post to it. It's available for reporting only. And if I go to 405, 10, and 15, you will see that I identified a parent ID of 400 industrial here, and it is an active dimension. So anything I post to and I tag the dimension of farm, mine, or factory, if I run a report or look at a dashboard based on the dimension 400, anything that has 400, 5, 10, and 15 on it will show up on that report. That's an example of a parent-child relationship right there. Okay. You can also create dimension groups. So if you wanted to create your own groups out here based on dimensions, so I'm going to dimension groups are used for reporting and dashboards. They're non-posting. They're available on the dimension and dashboards, like I said. They can either be dynamic or static. So let me go out here and pick dimension groups, and I want to pick vendor. And you'll notice out for this company ABC, we have two vendor groups, one for direct materials and one for indirect materials. And if I edit this, this is how you set it up. Okay. And then you have filters down here. So there for the direct materials, we're saying that is for anywhere where the vendor type equals direct materials. And I'm not sure why they repeated that out there. That second line's not needed. But the way this demo company came, it had it out there twice. But so this is saying vendor type is direct materials. Now, any report I run or dashboard I look at and I pick this vendor group on, it's going to only give me vendors that meet that criteria. Okay, so that's a dynamic list where it's creating the list based on our criteria here. You can also do static lists where you come in here and you tell it what members belong in this group, and you're specifically telling it what belongs in this group. So vendors are an example. We can also look at customers out here. So if I go out here, there can be groups on customers, any of my dimensions we talked about. So if I pick customers here, here's an example of active customers. So I'll go ahead and edit this one. So we have an active customer group. It's all members. So we're saying everybody. And we're saying it's for every customer where the status equals active. Also, because we're saying and down here, and the customer ID does not equal 10-100, 10-200, and 10-300. So what we're saying is even though these three customers are active, we don't want them as part of the active group because we're filtering them out by saying not equal to right here. Okay. So let me show you how you can create one of these real quick. I'm going to create one. So I'll go out here and say add. I'm going to create one for all customers in the state of Massachusetts. So I'm going to go cust-mass. And that'll repeat there. You can change to wherever you want. And I'm going to say these are MA customers. And I'm going to go ahead and leave mine to say all members because I'm not going to tell it specific ones I want. I'm going to let the system filter it for me. Ascending order is just how the sort's going to be. It can be ascending or descending. What you want to sort it on, I'm going to go ahead and go by the ID, which is the customer number. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say that I want it where the bill to contact address is equal to MA for Massachusetts. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say save. And you're going to see in a little bit when we get to the dashboards, I will now have a customer group called cust-mass that I can now report off of. And it's going to be any customer in Massachusetts. Okay. And also, if new customers get added that are in Massachusetts, it'll automatically add them to this group as well. Okay. Some other things on dimension setups. I told you could turn certain things on. So if I go to customers here, and I'm going to go ahead and pick in a customer here, universal alarms, and I'm going to edit this customer. Okay. And down here at bottom, this isn't there by default. So just like I talked about on the dimensions where you could turn on filtering and things of that by dimension, by account, you can also turn on by customer where you define defaults for these dimensions. So I'm saying for universal alarms, whenever I'm doing a transaction where this customer is used, I want to default the class dimension to 200 commercial and the department dimension to 100 sales. Okay. Now, there's a couple things about this. The way this customer is set up, the way this version of Intacct is set up, this is just set as the default. I can change it on a transaction and pick a different class or a different department. These are just the defaults. I could also make it be to where these aren't just defaults. These are the values for them, and I cannot change it because it'll tell me it's not available because it's not the department or the class assigned to that customer. So again, just additional functionality you can turn on for doing some restrictions here. Let's look at some transactions real quick. We're going to run through some transactions showing you how these things are used now, and then look at some dashboards out there. So I'm going to come here and go to General Ledger, and I'm going to go to Journal Entries, and I'm going to go to GJ Journal. I'm going to View Transactions, and I'm going to go ahead and add one here. And today's date's fine. I want to give it a description of expense. Expense prepaid insurance. So we're basically taking some of the prepaid insurance we have and we're expensing it out. Okay. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to pick my account. I can also just start typing in the name and it'll find it here. And I'm going to put that to the location of 100, to the department of 400 marketing, to the channel of 405 factory. And this is going to be $575. Okay. And then I'm going to come down and pick my prepaid insurance account. So I want to move it from prepaid insurance, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the same location here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the same department. Doesn't have to be. I can pick different ones if I need to be, but I'm going to go ahead and hit the same one here. And that's going to be a credit of $575. Okay. So what that's doing is that is just putting, you're making an entry for me. And you notice how I'm just picking my account, my location, my department, my channel, just picking my dimensions. There's also this attachment right here. I want to show that to you because this is really neat too. And this is through all the transactions in the system, really. Let me browse down on my other monitor here to get to what I want to attach. Let's say you had supporting document for this particular journal entry that you are making. And I'm going to go in here and grab this month-end adjustments. I'm going to drag this and just drop this right here. And notice it puts a PDF there for me. And when I drill down on it, there is my month-end adjustments that help justify this journal entry. And this will stay with this posting all the way through the system. So whether if I drill down on it from a report or a dashboard or wherever, that PDF will be there to click on. I'm going to go ahead and say post. This is not a batch processing system by default, so it posts that real time right out to the system. So let's look at that out there now. I'm going to go down and run a report real quick. I'll go to General Ledger, and I'm going to run my General Ledger report. And I'm going to pick today, today's date is the date. If I go down to my dimensions down here, here's the filtering I can start picking. You'll notice I will see my customer mass that we just talked about available right there on the customer. On the channel, you're going to see 400 industrial available, even though it's not available for posting because it is a parent dimension like we talked about. Okay, I'm not going to pick any of those right now, and I'm just going to go view. And this will run the report, and we should see the entry that we just made. If I go down to insurance, right here, prepaid insurance, here's the 575. It was for, right here's my headings, department, location. So here is my department, here's my location, and then here's my information. And I could go down and see the other side of the entry. If it's blue, it means I can drill down on it. So I'll drill down the 575 and see what is that all being made of here. And I'll see my entire journal entry out here. Okay. And here's that attachment we talked about. I can click on that to drill down and see that attachment, drill down it right from a report right there. Okay. Let me go back and customize this because I'm going to put some filters on now. Let me put on a filter of channel equal 405 factory and view this one. And you're going to see now it's going to filter just where my channel is 400 or 405. It's not showing on this report by default, but if I click on any of these transactions, you'll see that the channel is set to 405 on them. Same thing if I make it be 410, or I could just pick industrial. Remember, that's a parent one, and it'll grab any transaction that's been tagged with any of these three right here, just to show you how that changes. You're going to see the same three answers we just saw, plus additional ones. So all of these transactions all had 405, 410, or 415 tagged as the channel out there. Okay, so that's just an example of your reporting. Let's put an AR invoice in. I don't have to always stay in the same tab here. I can right click and go duplicate right here, and it'll open up another tab for me. And I can go, that's how I can have multiple things going at the same time. So I'll go accounts receivable, I'll go invoice, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add an invoice. And today's date's fine. I'm going to pick customer universal alarm. Okay. And you can, if you're putting a bunch of lines in on the entry show default, you could put default values in for your dimensions here, and then that will default on the lines right here. But notice, see how department and channel defaulted to 100 and 200? Because I set that up as defaults for universal alarm out in the customer. Just showing an example of how that can be done out there. So I'm going to pick the 420, the entry revenue account for $1,000. Okay, and I want to say that that's going to location 100 USA, and I'll leave this one at what it defaulted to, and I'll go down to a second line. Again, it defaulted, and I'm going to pick revenue surveillance. Okay, and this one's going to be for $1,000 as well. And I'm going to make this one be for New York. But I can also now override here. So I'm going to leave it as sales here, but I want this one to go to 415 farm. So that's the example how you can override the customer defaults. And I'm going to go ahead and say post here. So I want to show you how you would default from the customer and you could override it. Let's move on to AP bills here for a minute, which is AP invoices. And I'm going to go out here and go to accounts payable and go to bills. And I'm going to go ahead and add a bill. Okay, today's date's fine. I'm going to pick vendor ABC Supply. We have the same ability to put defaults for our dimensions here like we saw on the AR customers, but I'm going to leave it just not picking the defaults there. I'm going to pick the office supply account. Okay, and I'm going to put in an amount of $750. And I'm going to pick it for location 100 USA. For notice how the department 550 shows up here. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to be able to pick 550 here. And then I'm going to pick the channel of residential. And I'm going to put a second line on here. And this is going to be for our trade show and exhibit expense. And this was for $450. Okay, I'll pick New York on this one. Now when I go to my departments, look what does not show up. Notice how 550 does not show up. That's again because of my filtering and restrictions I put on by accounts for the departments. I didn't say that this was a valid account for the department 550, so it does not show up to let me post to it. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 300 admin, and I'm going to go ahead and pick 410 mine, and I'm going to go ahead and say post. And it posted it. Okay. Now, if you have reclassification turned on your transactions, you can reclassify these dimensions in these accounts. I want to go down here to an older one. So let me pick this right here. See, it's already been paid. I'm going to edit that. And notice when I edit that, I can go reclassify, and it lets me change my GL accounts and my dimensions here. Okay, if it's already been paid, I can't change the amounts. I can just change my dimensions and my accounts. That is also, there's restrictions. You have to be in, the period can't be closed. There are other restrictions as well available. And it also has to be set up by module to allow reclassification. But just showing you how it's easy just to kind of reclassify if you have that stuff turned on. Okay. So that is some transactions. Let's look at some dashboards now of how this all comes into play. So I'm going to go to dashboards. I'm going to go to general, and I'm going to go to my dimensional insights dashboard. Okay, so this is just a dashboard that we put out there. Notice how you can pick up to 3 dimensions up here at top. So it's set for departments, locations, and channels. So if I wanted to look at just my R&D, I could pick that and refresh by applying it here, and it'll filter all these by R&D. And it looks like none of those really had anything going to the revenue side of R&D. But if I pick like sales and apply, you'll see it start filtering down all my transactions. You can control these dashboards. These are performance cards. These are reports. You can put visual indicators like this is a green arrow pointing up because revenue surveillance is up to $20,250 over the prior month. Revenue entries up, but revenue accessories is down versus the prior month. Okay, so it's giving me my percentage that I'm up here, and what this is down 100%. So visual indicators are available. I'm going to say all departments here in a minute. On my channels, notice my industrial parent group shows up right here. Okay, so that shows up that I can apply. And you'll see it starts filtering down there. This number starts filtering. I can drill down on any of these dimensions or any of these widgets in my dashboard. So this is by revenue surveillance. Here's the entries that are the amount. I can drill down even further to get to the transactions underneath of it to look at the transactions out there that made up that 32.5. I can drill down even further on the credit to get to the actual posting out there. And I can even drill down further by clicking on the invoice right here. And it's going to take me to the invoices in that's out there. And I can view that invoice. So all from one dashboard, I drilled all the way down to an individual invoice out there in the system by just drilling down through the dashboards. Okay. I can change what dimensions show up here at top by default. If I click on this little widget right here, this is where I start editing my dashboard some. And I'm going to go to filters, and I'm going to say turn off channel, but make customer be available. And I'll save that. And then now when I come in here and say customer, here's my Massachusetts customer group that I created just a little bit ago. And I could run my reports based on that. And so now it's filtering down by just customers in the state of Massachusetts. And just like I saw before, I can drill down and look at underlying data on any of this stuff that's highlighted. There are also higher level dashboards like role-based dashboards. So there's a CFO dashboard out there available. And this shows you your company performance across a 12-month period. And it shows you your revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, and net income or loss visually. I can click on any of these to drill down and see what makes up that revenue overall, and it breaks it down by revenue, products, surveillance, entry, and accessories. And I can drill down to each of these and look at more underlying data as well, just like we saw by drilling down a little bit ago. Okay, and I can put down any of these dates, any of these. I could add, this only has locations turned on for it, but I could come out here and also say make the channel and the department be available as well. And that just makes them be available as things that I can start selecting and reporting off of out here. Okay. You can create dashboards out of the box. You can, there's some that come out of the box that you can turn on, and you can modify even the ones that come out of the box, but you can also create your own. So here's an example of a role-based one that Brett and I created for a project manager for a client that was looking at adding the project accounting module. So we created a dashboard called Project Manager where we dropped some reports on it that were project related. Okay. And there's a good report here, this revenue trend by dimension, that shows you the revenue, which was $17,500 for the period we're looking at here. But it breaks it down by each dimension. So that 17.5, what was residential versus commercial? Okay. What customer types did it get broken down across? So here's the customer types that got broken down across. what regions, what warehouses, what projects. So it just takes this is the example of some reports you have here where it starts just breaking that down by your dimensions if you set these reports up. Some of these reports are reports that we created. So the report writing functionality of this, you can create your own reports and you can add them to the dashboards as well and run them from here. You can edit each individual component by clicking on this pencil right here, which takes you out into the report editor, and you can start editing the columns and the rows to modify this report further. So all that's available. There's also, as I already mentioned, the color coding, but let me go to another role-based one here on controller, and you'll see it on a report here. See how it's got this report, and let me make this go back. A lot of this data is sitting out in 2018 here, so let me go to 2018, December 31st, and let me basically apply that. We'll see more data on this report. Notice how this is a profit and loss, actual versus budget. So here's my actual numbers, my budget numbers, and I get this variance percentage. And it basically, this report is set to color code red, negatives, green, positives. In the shade, notice how the shade gets lighter and darker of that color. The higher we get positive, the darker green it gets. The more negative we get, the darker red it gets. Okay, so all that is available out there as well. So a lot of neat stuff. We saw how you could create your dimensions. You could use them in transactions. You could put restrictions on them. You could put defaults on them. How you could use them on your reports and how you can use them on your dashboard. So just wanted to kind of introduce that topic to you guys and help with the Sage Intacct learning process here. So I guess where we're at now is, I don't know, Brett, did you have anything to add before we jump into questions and answers?
A couple of things, Joe, and you might have hit on these, and I might have just missed them. One thing to note within Intacct, all your master files are system-wide. They're not company-wide. You could restrict them by company, but the chart of accounts, so if you were a multi-company system, you really only have to load your chart of accounts and your dimensions one time. You don't have to do it per each company because they are available. They're available system-wide. Likewise, that's the same rule for customers, vendors, and items as well. Another few things that you saw Joe make some transactions and hit post. In the Sage 100 world, you would really hit save, and then you would always go to some end of day register where you would update everything that's out there, update a batch. It's direct posting. So as soon as you hit, there's a draft. If you want to keep working on the transaction, there is a save to draft, or you can say post, and that transaction is live, it's counted, it's in history. And then additionally, you saw Joe talk about reclassifying an option. This is a pretty neat feature that you just don't have in a Sage 100 product. Once you do post a transaction, let's say you do see that there was a problem, there is both an edit button and a reclassify button. The edit button, there's rules of when you can edit a historical transaction, when you have to reclassify a transaction. But you can, like if you just made a transaction, you hit post and you realize, oh, I messed something up, that amount was wrong, I need to add an additional line. You can do that, you can edit it. Typically, once you pay an invoice, that locks it from editing, or if you're out of the current month, it'll lock it from editing. Otherwise, moving backwards, then it opens up for reclassification, where you're not changing any amounts. Your financial totals will be the same, but you can move things from one account to another, or from one department to another department. That's called the reclassification. Those are the notes I had, Joe.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Brett. So just point out a couple things Brett mentioned. So I'm back in an AP bill here, putting it in. Just put one in real quick. Instead of saying post, as Brett was mentioned, if you're not ready to post this, you can say draft. Okay. And what that does is that's out here in a draft mode. So that has not been posted. It would not show up on the customer as an outstanding invoice, would not show up in our GL, would not show up on our dashboards, reports, things of that nature. I would then come back into it later to edit it, finish it, make it whatever changes I want. See, it's got draft right here, and then that's when I would go ahead and say post at that point. Okay. If you have set your rules up, we didn't get any errors in the demo here, so we didn't see it. But if we have set our rules up to allow certain things and we put in things that weren't valid combinations, we would get a message saying, hey, not available. And the other thing Brett mentioned, in Intacct, there is a top level that sits above all your companies. So in your existing ERP, these might be your three companies. There is a level that sits above it, and that's where you can put in your chart of accounts, your customers, your items, your vendors, your dimensions, things of that nature. And that way you only have to set up one chart of accounts, one list of customers, one list of vendors, one list of items. So when you add new, you're not adding it across, 3 to 5 to 10 different companies. You're putting it at one place and it's available for all those companies, but you can put restrictions on them to not make certain ones be available for certain entities or companies. Just wanted to point out, where Brett was talking about on those there. Okay. I guess we don't have anything else in terms of that. I guess we'll see. Do we have any questions out there, Betsy, by chance?
There are a couple, and if anyone has any additional ones, you can either send them through the Q&A or chat. The first one is, what dimensions are included?
Okay. So there are a number of dimensions. Let me go back up top to my presentation here. So this is a good list right here of what is kind of included. So the dimension, or sorry, the Intacct core, the core Intacct in the modules that come with that product, you get the customer dimension, the vendor dimension, the employees dimension, location, departments, classes, and items. Okay. Those come out of the box with the core Intacct product. If you add the inventory module, then that enables the warehouse dimension. If you add the project and costing and billing module, that enables the projects. You could also do a basic project tracking as well if you don't want to go full bore project, costing and billing, but you just want to have a project available that you want to post to and track, like billings and expenses to. You can get that, but that also makes project become available, and contracts if you have the contracts one. So the ones in green here, so these 7 come with the core Intacct. These 3 come with these individual modules right here. And then if you have the need for outside of that, like you have additional data you want to track, you can add predefined dimensions here where you determine what they are. And you can add those in either individual added dimensions or in packs of 3.
Okay. The next question I have is, are there dashboard templates, or would you have to create your own?
Well, there are templates that come with it. So there are certain ones out of the box that are available. So like that CFO one we looked at, those are available right out of the box. You can turn them on or turn them off to make them be available or make them not be available. So yes, there are templates that come right out of the box. You can just basically start running dashboards right away from day one with the ones that come up right out of the box. As I kind of mentioned, you can create your own dashboards, and that was the example of the project manager one that I said Brett and I kind of created for a client to kind of show them how that would work for them. And you can modify the ones out of the box as well. So you can add additional functionality to it, remove certain widgets, all that good stuff. So, yep, some come out of the box, but you can also create your own. You can also modify the ones out of the box as well.
All right. And the last one I have is there an additional cost for the dashboard?
No, the dashboards are included with the product. So the ones that come with it are included with it, and the ability to add your own and edit them is all included as part of the core Sage Intacct product.
All right, that sounds good. I don't see any other questions. We can give it a minute to see if anyone else wants to add anything.
I'll talk about a couple things here while we're waiting here. First of all, if you have any other questions, you can email any of these email addresses right here. That's my email address. That's Brett's email address. The Cincy at Martin & Associates is a general one that I think that's your clearing rate. So if you want to email any of those, we can get it answered for you. This is, as I mentioned kind of at the beginning, this is kind of a Sage Intacct webinar series that we're kicking off. So for the ones that got this email and signed up, thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming and learning with us here. The next one's coming up. We have the Sage Intacct approval processes, a webinar we're going to do on Thursday, November 21st. And that's going to go into the built-in approval processes inside of Sage Intacct. So if you want to have approvals for when vendors get added in the system, or when AP bills get put in, or if you're a PO system or a company that does POs and you want to, have approvals on your purchase requisitions, that's where the approvals come into play. So we're going to go over that on November 21st and look at how you set that up and use that. And then on December 19th is the third one that's currently scheduled. It's going to go over AP automation and bank feeds that are available inside of Sage Intacct. So those are the next two we have scheduled. We will be adding other ones to that as we go through. And one of them will be kind of more of a deep dive into dashboards. We just haven't scheduled it yet, where we'll actually go in and show you how you can edit dashboards, create dashboards, things of that nature, kind of a more deep dive into that. So look for the invites coming out for the next webinar when it comes up, and just always look at the bottom of that as well. You'll see the list of other webinars that are coming up, and if you can attend in person, just go ahead and register as well, and you'll get sent a link to the webinar that you can then watch later. For you that are on the call right here, you will be getting an email from us coming out in the next day or so, Betsy, with the link to the webinar on it.
Correct.
So you could look at it again later if you have questions, forward to other people in your office, whatever you want to do with that. That's, it's available for you to kind of look at. If you have any other questions, like I said, reach out, let us know. And again, thanks for attending, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.